Hello, Gene the OK Boomer here. Welcome to this week's vlog. Or maybe I should say Gene the Cold OK Boomer here because it's cold today. I woke up, it was 18 degrees outside, and I don't understand it. This has been a real big disappointment for me because I'm in Tennessee, outside of Memphis. I moved here about 3 years ago. I thought that the South is supposed to be warm. I thought that Tennessee would be like Florida. Well, maybe no palm trees, but it would be at least comfortable. But, well, that's another subject. Don't get me started. Let's just make a long story short. I don't like cold weather. And I'm starting to wonder whether I should have moved to Florida. Maybe I will someday. I don't like cold weather. I'll just confess. But that's, as I said, that's me. So on to today's subject. And today we're going to talk about, well, you've already seen in the title. You're probably going to be surprised if you've been watching my vlogs for a while. And I'll just say at the outset right now, as I usually do, or I try to do, that I'm a conservative. Always keep that in mind when you evaluate what I say. But I have to say that I'm starting to feel glad that Biden won, that Biden is president, that Trump lost. And I'm going to tell you why. Don't get mad if you're a conservative, fellow conservative, and don't get mad and shut off the video. Listen to another point of view, because this is something that I think it's a point that needs to be made, and I think somebody made it today, actually, some talking head on TV. So that's how we know that I'm right, because if a talking head on TV says the same thing I did, then that's just proof that I'm right. And maybe someday these talking heads will be citing me if a lot of you watch my videos and I become popular, and then I will be the validator, the gatekeeper of truth for all these TV pundits. Anyways, so on to today's subject. The reason, well, here are some of the reasons why I'm glad that, starting to become glad that Trump lost, that Biden is president. And the main reason is, well, let's go to approval ratings. Now, I follow the Rasmussen poll of likely voters. I've mentioned this in the past. Right now, Biden, today, he was at 43%. He was at 40% a couple of days ago. And I've been anxiously waiting for his approval, Biden's approval among the likely voters on the Rasmussen poll to drop below 40%. I keep hoping he gets to 40 and then he bounces back every time. Right now he's at 43. But that will be a real sea change. That's when I would really become excited about the upcoming elections, 2022 and 2024. So here we have Biden at 43% today, but even that is 1 point below where Trump was in the same poll at this point in Trump's presidency. And the gap was even wider a couple of days ago when Trump was around 44 and maybe even up to 46, in the 40s there, but Biden was exactly at 40. But here is Trump's approval today. Remember the one I just told you, that's where Trump was at the same point in his presidency where Biden is now. But where is he today? Obviously he's not president, but what does the public think of him today? 52%. He's at 52% approval, which tells me two things. It tells me, first of all, that well, it tells me three things. It tells me that the public is waking up and they get it, and they're not being swayed by our liberal media. They understand that Trump was a better president, just hands down. In fact, if Biden had just sat there and done nothing since taking the oath of office, just stayed in his basement or went back to his basement, the whole country would be better off. I don't think, well, Democrats, liberal Democrats would disagree with me. But even there, among Democrats, he's got positive approval ratings from a fifth of Democrats. 1 out of every 5 Democrats, or 1 out of 5 Democrats, give more approval, higher approval to Trump than to Biden. So that tells me that the Republicans are going to do very well in the 2022 elections, the midterm elections. But it also tells me, unless there's some kind of drastic change to the better for the Biden administration, which I certainly don't predict, that Trump will be reelected or elected, I guess. We can't say re-elected. I don't know how you say it if there's been an interregnum in between one administration and the second Trump administration that I anticipate. But I'm confident that he's going to be re-elected in 2024. And first of all, well, that's one reason right there to be glad that he lost. Well, this would have happened in 2022, that liberal heads will explode. But they're going to be, imagine after 4 years of Biden, and then Trump basically just waltzes, wins a landslide election in 2024. That's going to tell me that it's going to be a long time before we have another Democrat in the White House, or in the House and the Senate. I expect the Republicans to retake the House 2022. There's an evenly 50-50 Senate right now, and unfortunately the Republicans have about twice as many seats up in the Senate in 2022 than do the Democrats. So that's a kind of a headwind, but I still see a very good chance of the Republicans taking over the Senate. They only need one vote to do it. Now the Democrats only need one vote to go the other way, and then in the Senate they will be able to, this Build Back Bankrupt bill, for instance, they would be able to ram that through then, and or there's a good chance that they would, but I expect the Republicans to control the House, and so then that would be the end of that, because, well, I don't want to speculate too much on that. I'm starting to get off track again. The point is that, this is the main point. This is actually a sudden decision to discuss this topic today. What I was going to discuss was Aaron Rodgers, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, who said that a book that he's reading or he has read, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which I have, by the way. I've read it, and it's a very important book that everything we're going through today could have been avoided by everybody reading that book. Now, I have to say there are a lot of flaws in the book. I'm not minimizing the flaws in the book or in Ayn Rand herself, and that's one problem. A lot of critics, they conflate the authoress with the book, her personal life with the book, which is not what you should do. But because there are a lot of authors that I don't like that personally, but whose work is very good. So, and you can also say, Robert De Niro is undeniably a good actor. He said F Trump in an awards show, like Academy Awards, I think. But I would still, he's a great actor. That's undeniable. And I wish he wouldn't be, I don't have to know his politics, and he'd hold off on the political statements, but he's undeniably a great actor. And I couldn't say that I wouldn't see a movie if I was interested in the subject of the movie, because he's in it because of his politics. I wish more people could be like that. So getting back to Atlas Shrugged, there's a lot of problems with the book. I'm not going to go into all the problems with the book. There are things that I agree with, things that I disagree with, but I'm not here to discuss the book today. What I am to accept to the extent of where the book takes place. Atlas Shrugged basically is a polemic disguised as a novel. It's really just a vehicle for Ayn Rand to get her point of view across on certain things, and you could agree or disagree. But what what caught me, my interest most, I read the book, is the milieu, the atmosphere in which the whole story takes place. Atlas Shrugged takes place, and the whole setting of the novel is a dystopia. It's a country, it's a fictional country, but obviously meant to be the United States. And the country in this novel is descending into chaos. Things don't work. People are out of work, factories shutting down, chaos everywhere. It's not a world in which any of us should want to live. But this is, how would you describe that world if you had to describe it in a short sentence? And it is this. It's a world in which liberals get everything they want. That's basically it. Social justice and running the government and the economy on the basis of social justice instead of the simple pursuit of the profit motive. If liberals could get everything they wanted, what would the world look like? What would this country look like? Just read Ayn Rand and read Atlas Shrugged and you will know. That's why I changed the subject at the last moment, because I was going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and how liberals they're just, their heads are exploding because this quarterback, it's got nothing to do with his athletic ability, but Aaron Rodgers, because he's read or is reading Atlas Shrugged, and that's what I was going to talk about. But now I was going to say, and everybody should read Atlas Shrugged, because she wrote that in 1957. Ever since 1957, we knew what the world would look like, or what this country would look like if liberals got their way. Now we know, unfortunately, because nobody heeded her warning. And who knows, maybe this is the world that liberals would like to live in. They would rather have social justice. Actually, I believe some of them would. They would rather have everybody destitute and living in poverty and starving, as long as their social justice goals were met. I really believe that about some liberals. And you can see that. I mean, you look at New York. I was hopeful for this new mayor, but I'm not anymore. And I look at all these blue states, and they haven't learned. You see these liberal cities turning into Atlas Shrugged, and they refuse to change. Not only do they refuse to change direction, they actually double down. So now this brings me back to, so I was going to say you don't have to read. I was going to say, now I say you don't have to bother to read Atlas Shrugged. As I said, there's a lot of things wrong with the book, and it's a long book. But you're living in it right now. You're living in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged world right now. So my question is, how do you like it? But getting back to Trump, which is my main point today, is we would not be, well, on the one hand, it's bad because that he's not president, because if he were, then we would not be living in Atlas Shrugged right now. But the good part of it is that because he's not president and Biden is president and the far left is in control, we are experiencing the country when liberals are in control, when the far left is in control, governing according to their principles. Well, I guess you can't do anything about the local level from the federal level, but at least you get the idea. This would not be happening if Trump were president, then things would be better, but then you would still have liberals and the far left advocating their positions, saying how much better things would be. Now we know finally that things not only would not be better, they would be much worse. And unfortunately, we're going to have to get through 3 more years of the Biden administration and Atlas Shrugged. 3 more years of Atlas Shrugged. That's the bad part. But like a tornado, once it's over, we can rebuild. And that's the good part, because in 2024, Trump will be president, I predict. He will, or the Republican will win, put it that way. But if it looks like he'll be the nominee, and if he is the nominee and he runs, he will win. That's what I hope. I pray for that, but I think that's what's going to happen. And then things will turn around quickly, and people will be able to compare and contrast the 4 years of Atlas Shrugged and 4 years of the Trump. Well, I won't say that the next Trump administration will be a utopia, that the country will be a utopia when he's in the White House again. I will say, relatively speaking, compared to what we're going through now, yeah, in that sense, it would be a utopia. One other point to make, which is that, referring to my notes here that I can barely read because of my handwriting, but it will give our liberal friends, the Democrats, a chance to prove they're not hypocrites. They were talking, they've just been going on and on and on, and we just had this January 6th, nonsense. I guess I'll call it a kvetching festival. That's a Yiddish word. It means to complain, to kvetch. So it was like kvetch palooza, but they can show that they're on a higher moral ground than we conservatives and not contest the election if Trump wins, as the liberal media likes to bury this, starting with George W. Bush in 2000. Democrats they've contested, they've refuted every election that Republicans have won. They've claimed all of them were illegitimate. The debold machines in Ohio. Now they say how crazy conservatives are to talk about the Dominion machines, but they were making the exact same kinds of complaints about the debold machines in 2000 or 2004, I believe it was, when Bush won for his second election, and now they're well, obviously they never talk about. They never talk about Trump's claims of stolen election. They always say Trump's false claims. I've never seen this before. They always have to put the word false. They always have to editorialize. They can never just say claims. So we'll see what happens when Trump, as I hope and predict, wins in 2024. Will they accept the results, or will they be hypocrites and say that the election was stolen? And finally, he said, saving the best for last, there's the Supreme Court. Can anybody be unaware of how liberals are screaming at Justice Breyer to retire? I think there was even a demonstration in front of the Supreme Court screaming at Justice Breyer to retire, while there's a Democrat in the White House, a Democratic president, to nominate his replacement and a Democratic Senate to confirm it. Obviously, they only have, we have to remember that in an election year, if the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, which is a possibility, then as happened or didn't happen with Merrick Garland, there also would not be any hearing for whomever Biden might nominate. So really, they don't have much time. They really only have 2 years. Not even that, because if the Democrats lose the Senate in 2022, then in 2023, the Republicans will control the Senate. And in 2023, certainly they would give a hearing to whomever the president nominated for the Supreme Court, but it would be, obviously the Republicans would have a very strong hand in deciding who that nominee would be. And then the next year, 2024, if the Republicans control the Senate, then there, as I said, there would be no hearing at all for a Supreme Court nominee by Joe Biden. So they don't have much time. And for his part, Breyer, he's given just the opposite. Not only has he not given any indication of wanting to retire, he's pushed back on that. He has said that he just made it clear he doesn't want to retire. And I also listened to oral arguments today. They were on the internet of the oral arguments before the Supreme Court about the so-called vaccine mandate, the OSHA. It's a whole other subject. The point is that unlike Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was clearly in poor health and was falling asleep on the bench, and she had cancer, obviously in failing health. I don't see that in Breyer at all. He's an older gentleman, of course, but he seems, for his age, he seems pretty spry and in full possession of his physical and mental faculties. So that brings me to the icing on the cake, the best part of Trump not being elected in 2020, because I see the chances of a Supreme Court nomination being available, or a vacancy occurring on the Supreme Court during this presidential term. I see that as very small. Trump is not president now, but if he is in 2025 and for the next 4 years, there's a much greater likelihood of a vacancy occurring. If it's a conservative justice, then Trump would appoint, obviously, a conservative, and the balance on the court would stay the same, 66-3 conservative majority. If a Democrat, I keep saying Democrat, well, they're Democrats, but a liberal justice retires, then obviously if Trump appoints a replacement, that is going to create a 7-2 majority on the Supreme Court, and that majority will hold for a long, long time. That would have a much longer impact, go far beyond Trump's presidency. So you have to remember, 3 of the justices on the court right now were appointed by Donald Trump in his first term. So could you imagine, you talk about liberal heads exploding, this would be a hydrogen bomb. Could you imagine if Trump were to get a 4th pick, if 4 of the 9 justices on the court were Trump appointees? So that's a reason to go out and buy popcorn right there. It's one of the reasons I regret that there aren't popcorn futures, or I would buy some right now in anticipation of a great run on popcorn in 2025 when Trump, as I predict and hope, is reelected. But do you see the advantage? This is what I was getting at in this whole vlog. It could actually turn out to be an advantage that Trump is not president today and becomes president in 2025. Look up, be optimistic. This country has a way of correcting itself. It may take some time, might be some turmoil, but the American people eventually get it right, and that's what I expect to happen. Just as another aside, these illegal, unlawful aliens coming into the country, you've noticed, or you may have noticed, Trump did better than previous administrations, except maybe George W. Bush, among Hispanics. And it seems like Republicans will do even better in elections going forward. So you have all these unlawful aliens coming over the border. But maybe their children will grow up to vote not Democrat, as the Democrats hope, but vote Republican, and that would that not be poetic justice? So I guess that's it for today. Let me just look at nothing more here. So as always, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions for future topics, you can put them in a space below the video. You could share this video with anybody you think would like it. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.